So here we have all of the states listed out from the United States, and next to them is their corresponding populations, and at the bottom we have the total population of all of these states. So that's the population of the United States. Oops. There you go. And this column represents the number of electoral votes that each state has currently in our current electoral college system. So what we want to do is try to calculate what the actual electoral college votes would be for each state if they were perfectly in proportion to their population size. So what that would mean was each state was given equal opportunity only according to their population and by nothing else. So if we have two of these in each come from the two senators, while the other are proportioned by the House of Representatives, which are calculated by their by the amount of population that you have in each state, but the two senators are not. It's constant for all of them. So 2 votes, and I'll get to this again later, 2 votes means something different for a state that has 4 million people than a state that has 684,000. So we'll add them back in later, but in proportion. So let's start by just subtracting out the 2 senators that there would be for each of these states. And I'm just going to bring that formula all the way down. Now here, these are our totals. This is the total electoral votes in our system right now. So let's just quickly total up how many votes we just took out. So we want to have a total of, let's do that up here. So we're going to put that we have a total of 51 states times the 2 senators that we just took out. So that's the number of senators. And here, let's put the total number of all of these. So let's sum up all of the new electoral votes that we have. 436. So that's how many votes are already decided based off of the House of Representatives, which is decided based off of population. So the population percent, what I'm going to do is find the percent that each state has in proportion to the total country population. And I'm just gonna, in Excel, this makes this a permanent address, which just means that as this formula goes down, it's just gonna use this same number even though it's moving. So we'll just drag that down. And to make it look a little simpler, let's just move it over and make it a percent. So this is the percent of the population that each state has. So California makes up 12% of the United States. So if we calculate the electors exactly, what we need to do is multiply the percent of the population that we have by the total number of electoral votes that we want to have for that. So in this case, we're going to use the 436 because we don't want to include the senators just yet. So that's the number for the senators, for the electoral votes for the House of Representatives. So let's just make this a permanent address again and copy this formula down and move it over. So what you have is these numbers should correspond equally to these. And since we can't have a decimal, we can't have like 0.5% of a House of Representatives, because representatives are people. So we can't have a fraction, we just need to make sure that it's a whole number. So what they do in each case is just round. So this 0.996 turns into a 1, this 6.5 turns into a 7. But as you can see, the difference between the electors that we have and the electors that we should have and the electors that we have, there's always some discrepancy. So in each case, these are all of the differences. And yes, when you sum these all together, it should equal something either 0 or close to 0. But the problem is some of them are going down and some of them are going up. So when you see that, that means that none of them are actually equal to what the state should have. So you'd have to add up all of the even ones and then add up all of the negative ones and then add those together, and that's just how much it's off by total. And they wouldn't actually cancel out. So this is how much it's off by. So let's move that over one. So now I told you that we would look at how much is an even split of 2 senators. So we want to make sure that, so this is the number of electors that we would want from the House of Representatives. But like I said, 2 senators, if you add 2 to 1, you're going to get 3. But if you add 2 to 53, you're going to get 55. So the difference that it makes in proportion terms is extremely different depending on the number of electors you start with. If you have 53 electors, 2 more is going to be extremely small compared to if you have 1, you're tripling the size of your voting power. But with this, you'd be very insignificantly working with it. I think it'd be like, yeah, never mind. So, how much would an even split be for senators? So let's look at this. That would mean that we would need to take the population percent so that it's even, and we'd multiply it by the number of senators we want to have total. So this is the number of senators that we subtracted out, so let's just use that. It could have been any number, but let's just do that for now. And we want to make this a permanent address so that it stays the same for all of them. And scroll it down. So, as you can see, if you were to evenly and proportionately disperse the electors from the Senate only, this would be 0.23, which means that 2 senators in Alaska would, if you wanted to split it evenly, you would need 0.23 of a senator. Meanwhile, so that's an even split with this California one. So if we're just comparing these, let's look at these. In Alaska, you want 0.23 senators. And in California, you want 12.44. What that means is that in order for all of these to be even proportionally, you would need different numbers of senators. So in the Electoral College, when we add 2, we're significantly obscuring the numbers that we actually are voting with. And that is why the Electoral College is not an equal representation of all of the states. So the total Electoral College votes that would need to be, the total Electoral College votes we would need to make this a fair and equally proportioned election for each of the states would be the electors you had from the House of Representatives plus the electors you would have from the senators, and you just scroll that down to the end. So the number of electoral votes, and let me just remind you, let me just put this right back in over here. So the number of electoral votes that you have for Alaska is 3, but it only deserves 1.229. And here you have 9, but it only deserves 8. And here you have 6, and it only deserves 5. Meanwhile, in California, you only have 55, but it deserves 66. If you wanted all of the states to be equal by proportion, that would be what you would need to do. And quite frankly, the Electoral College just isn't a fair representation of the states' equality. So if your argument really is that you want all states to be considered equal and the Electoral College gives small states the ability to have a say in the matter, yeah, I will say, yeah, it's good to have small states have a say in the matter. I think that's a valid opinion. But the Electoral College does not represent that. You have small states having more power than the states with the more people in them. And I think that's unfair. So, I think if you're going to go by the equal states argument, you need to actually have an Electoral College that represents equality between the states. Our current system does not. So yeah, that's all. Thank you for watching that video. I hope this helps clarify some of your struggles with the Electoral College, if you're curious. If you have questions, feel free to comment. I haven't had a comment yet, so I'm really excited to get one, so feel free. Thank you. Have a good day.